Come on in, come on in. We'll be getting started in just a couple minutes. Just a couple minutes. Just a couple more minutes. Good afternoon, and welcome to Her Peace Talk Show. We are so excited to have you here with us today, and I am so excited to have my special guest with me today. We are looking forward to an awesome conversation. I ask that while you join us, that you will tag and share and invite others. But I promise you this afternoon that this is going to be an awesome, awesome, awesome conversation with my girl and my friend, Reverend Dr. Shalita Mira. Hey girl, what's going on?
Hello, my friend, my friend. All is well. All is well. I am glad to be here with you this afternoon as we
Yes,
talk
yes,
about
yes.
such an important topic.
Of
Mhm.
course, of course, of course. And we are going to have an awesome time this afternoon. We are grateful for those who will join us and watch us on Facebook Live. And we're also grateful for those who are watching on YouTube. And for those of you on YouTube, because I'm not watching on YouTube, if you have any questions as we go along, you are welcome to text me your questions and I will ask Dr. Shalita your questions, and you can text me at 407-925-6071. Again, the number is 407-925-6071 if you have any questions. And so I have been inviting guests to talk with me all month, and I have been talking about self-care. Well, Dr. Shalita is a pastor and she's also a licensed therapist. But not only that, she is the owner of, tell me the name of the Center for Joy. Did I get it right?
No, it's the heart centered journey, counseling, coaching, and
Oh,
consultation.
okay. Where I get joy from? And so um, she is a big on not just therapy, but she also teaches others on forms of self care and things to do. And she also, are you still making products?
I am, but I'm only doing them on client needed basis. So it's
Got it.
active clients that I'm working with because it can get to be a lot, running an entire product line and keeping up with that.
Uh huh.
So as my
You are
clients need
absolutely
it,
right.
I will special make products. Mhm.
Got it, got it, got it. Trust me, I understand, and you are right. Those products can get overwhelming when you have it out there for others to just order. Yes, they can get overwhelming. So, again, this afternoon, I want to welcome my friend and my sister, Reverend Dr. Shalita Mira, who is a pastor and also a licensed therapist. And she joins me in the conversation today about self care. And I'm sure some other things are going to come up in our conversation. We're both pastors, we're both big on self care. And so I'm sure that this is going to be an awesome, 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 awesome conversation. Dr. Shalita, can you first tell us, you told us the name real quickly, but if you can tell us the name of your business again, and if you can tell us what services you offer in your practice.
Sure. I am the founder and clinical director of the Heart Centered Journey Counseling, Coaching, and Consultation. And so at the Heart Centered Journey, we provide mental wellness, clinical therapy, in addition to life coaching and supervision. The supervision aspects come in more with students who are looking to enter into the social work or the mental health profession, and they need a seasoned clinician to kind of work with them on the professional aspect and then on the coaching aspect. So that's kind of what services are offered through the Heart Center Journey. Mhm.
Oh, I didn't know. So students who need to um, finish out their training, I believe they have to have so many hours and they have to sit under someone. You have students who sit up under you now to finish out their hours and their time.
Yes, exactly. Because I also teach full time at St. Leo University. I'm an assistant professor of undergraduate social work.
Mhm.
And so, a part of that, I'm also licensed with the state of Florida to help prepare clinicians for entering the field because we need clinicians with everything that's going on around us. And so I do that portion as well. So that's kind of the consulting, a little bit of the consulting and the supervision piece of what I do.
Oh, that is awesome. I didn't know that. That is awesome. And I'm sure, yeah, because you're a wealth of knowledge. That's what I put in the tag, that those students are having an awesome experience. So now, how long have you been doing that?
So the Heart Centered Journey has been in existence for a little over 10 years. And God birthed that desire within me to be a part of the journey of others. The reality of it is life can throw so many challenges and obstacles. And there are times when we can feel lonely. Or on the opposite spectrum, we may have a lot of family and friends, but they may not provide us the supports that we need in order to be successful. So the Heart Center Journey is just a place to come. I think about laying our burdens right at the feet of Jesus. And so it's a place where people can come and just have that unconditional love, that unconditional positive regard, a place to just be authentic and real and cast your cares. And so that's what the Heart Center Journey is really founded upon. It is just having a place of escape. And so I partner with each and every one of my clients in a unique way. I become a part of their story, a part of their journey. And along the journey, we find the healing that they need. We tailor the strategies and the self care and the interventions specific to them because that's what I believe we need. We are looking for a partner, a companion. And so my therapy practice is unique in that way.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Now, I want to ask you a question. So, you've been practicing for 10 years, and we have been here in this pandemic, COVID-19, for a little over 2 years. Can you tell us what you have noticed as far as people needing therapy 7 years ago opposed to after experiencing this pandemic? Have you noticed anything different?
Absolutely. The need for therapeutic services has increased, and the manifestation and the prevalence of mental illness has increased.
Mm.
Historically, there's always been a need for mental health related services, but I will say that the flow of clientele was, I would say, a lot more manageable historically. It was nothing to have a client come in, and if they were there for 2 hours, you had the space to really be present. I went from that to now having almost a 6 month wait list
Oh, wow.
of clients who are trying to get in for services. And because finding a mental health provider is so important, it has to be the right match. There are providers out there, but you have to shop and find the one that connects with your spirit, that is able to invest in you. And because word of mouth, individuals have discussed their experiences with me and my therapeutic approaches. When individuals call, of course, they want me to do their therapy. And at this point, I have to tell them, unfortunately, as much as I want to get you in, I have a wait list at this point.
Mm.
So there is a significant increase in services, and yet there's still not enough providers in our communities, especially the rural communities, which is where I live. I live in a rural community in North Florida.
Wow. So what you're saying is is that there's really not enough hours in the day for you to meet the needs of clients needing services.
You're exactly right. And that is what spawned the desire to bridge over into academia. And so I've been teaching with St. Leo for a little over 6 years now. And I realized that the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. And so I bridged over into academia and became a qualified supervisor so that I could encourage more individuals, especially those in our communities, to come into this profession because there's so many obstacles that we have to overcome in our communities, stigma, and when we think about the lack of education, the knowledge gap when it comes to mental illness, what mental illness looks like, how it manifests. And so I then kind of was open to saying, okay, Lord, maybe I can work on two sides of the spectrum. I can provide the clinical services, and then I can also bridge over into academia. So that birthed the love of teaching. But then there is the dilemma of trying to do both. And I possibly could take on more clientele, but then that takes away the ability to train social workers to come into the field. So I try to do a little bit of both to contribute to what we need in our communities, especially during this pandemic era.
Mhm, mhm. Now, with that, where do you see therapy services moving forward?
So therapeutic services have morphed. Historically, when you think about therapy, you think about going into an office and sitting on a couch and being face to face with your therapist. However, in the midst of COVID, while we were practicing what's called telehealth, which is virtual clinical intervention,
Did we lose you, Dr. Shalita? Dr. Shalita, did we lose you? Lord, let her come back. We need this information. We need this information. I believe you're coming back now. There we go. We're back.
are you able to hear me, my sister?
Yes. Yes. That just meant that it was getting ready to get good, but we're going on.
I think I may still be having a little technical issues on my end. Let me see.
Okay. Give us just a few moments. We all know that technology can cut up sometimes.
Okay, let's try again. Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I
Yep.
can hear you, but I think it's dragging on my end just a bit. So I apologize for
Oh,
that.
okay. If we go out again, just call me and we can continue the conversation if we go out again. We're going to get this information out here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's dragging, so I can't.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello. Okay.
So mute
So mute
your device.
your device.
All right. And we can finish it um over the phone if we need to.
Okay. Okay.
We're not going to let this defeat us. We know how to keep going.
Yeah, we can certainly finish it in this format.
Yep. So tell us again, where do you see therapy now, especially after what you just said about the numbers increasing?
All right. So historically, like I was saying, when we thought about the therapeutic modality, we were in the room with the therapist. There was that physical presence, but with the onset of COVID, we had to change how we conducted therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really kind of branched into, not that it was formed before, but really into the telehealth arena.
Mm-hmm.
And telehealth allows for us to interact with our clients, but through the use of virtual platforms. Typically, we have our HIPAA compliant platforms, and depending on whether we're doing coaching or therapy, we can use other platforms like Zoom. And while many of us were concerned about the outcome if this virtual format would be as powerful as the face-to-face intervention, what we found was actually more individuals are open now to therapy because they can attend therapy sessions from their home. They don't have to come out. They don't have to go to a physical location. For those who had fear of COVID, and we see that the anxiety attached to COVID has significantly increased. But we found that more individuals were open to and attending therapy using the virtual platform, so much so that my entire practice went from face-to-face to virtual, because even though there was some ambivalence at first, once they tried it, they found that they liked that modality a lot better than even coming into the office for the therapeutic intervention. So I see that a lot of the ambivalence that used to exist around attending therapy is starting to subside, and individuals are becoming more open because they can kind of control the environment and be in a place of comfort and safety.
That is awesome. So what you're saying is that you now see it where more individuals are more open to therapy than what they were before we experienced COVID.
Absolutely. I think that what COVID, the blessing that came out of COVID was populations that did not necessarily get on the internet as often, or who did not know how to navigate, let's say, YouTube or Facebook or Zoom, especially when we think about church, right? We had to learn how to worship in a different format. And what that did is it opened up this space for growth. And so individuals who historically may not ever have gotten on YouTube or never would have known what Zoom was, now they've learned how to use these platforms. And so now they're jumping on and they're watching videos and they're learning, wow, I'm feeling this way. And it's probably because it's anxiety, or I'm feeling this and it's because it's depression. And this video and this article or this workshop that I've attended, because even the workshops now, the information, such as this particular show, the Her Peace Talk show, individuals are now exposed to more information. And so now they're realizing, wow, you know, this is something that's valid. This is anxiety. And then they're researching where I can go. And that opens up the door to connecting with a therapist or connecting with a coach, depending on what they need.
That's good. That's good. Now, you just mentioned a word, and I want to talk about that a little bit. Can you speak to the audience and tell us, how do you recognize signs of anxiety?
So the first piece of it is called presence and awareness. What COVID did for many, that many are now sharing in a variety of forums, is it forced us to slow down and to pay attention to the self. We were running at a pace that was unnatural. And at that pace, pre-COVID, we were not taking the time to even assess ourselves, to identify, you know, I'm having a panic attack. My heart is racing. My hands are shaking. I'm not sleeping. I can't focus. I'm having these recurring thoughts. I'm having difficulty breathing. I'm having pain in my chest. And what happened during COVID is because so many things stopped, it forced us to pay attention to our being. And so the first thing has to, it's centered around mindfulness and presence. Paying attention to and being aware of my own body. And then when I'm aware of my body, I can identify these functions that are happening, these what we call symptomology that may be happening in my body. And then our body will tell us things that are normal, right? And things that are uncomfortable. And so when we assess ourselves, when we look at sleep patterns, when we think about our eating habits, when we think about irritability and mood, when we think about fear, when we evaluate our thought processes and we're worried constantly or our stress is high, then we can think about some of the information that we have encountered, whether it be YouTube or Instagram or a workshop, or maybe someone sharing it in a variety of other different mediums, and we can connect that symptomology with the actual diagnostic label.
That's good. That is absolutely positively good, because people are definitely more stressed and have more anxiety. It's not that it wasn't present before, but as you said, because we had to slow down and be still, it was more visible. It was more visible in ourselves as well as others. Is it easier now for you to tell when someone is stressed or on the edge?
I would say it's easier now because the clientele that we are serving is able to identify it.
Okay.
Historically, we normalized this fast pace, go, go, go. I got to produce because the more I produce, the more I'm worth, right? We normalized this heightened state of production that, again, was unnatural. And what has happened, because we've been forced to stop, individuals are now realizing healthy their previous state was. And so because they're equipped with the knowledge and they have spent that time in that space of awareness and contemplation, they actually do a better job identifying to us during the assessments that we complete what those symptoms are. And a lot of it is because of this information era that was birthed through COVID that allowed individuals to be exposed to information that historically they were not exposed to, and they no longer normalize the stress response. They now realize that there are some things that are happening biologically, psychologically, and emotionally that are out of balance, and they're seeking the help for that.
Now, let me ask you a question, because you said that your practice now has a waiting list. Perhaps there is someone listening now, either on Facebook or YouTube, or perhaps someone may hear the replay, and they are in need of therapy, but they run into what you're saying, and they run into nothing but waiting list. What would you say to that person?
What I would say to them is don't give up. Continue to canvass your community for resources. And just because there's a wait list, typically when individuals reach out to my practice, we do our best to try to get them connected to another community provider.
Okay.
However, there are some other tools that are now accessible, and while they may not be the optimal choice, they may be a good place to start. And I'm going to use an example of BetterHelp. A lot of us have seen the commercials when it comes to BetterHelp, and what BetterHelp has is this panel of clinical providers that function in that telehealth domain. And not only telehealth, but they do, some text and some telephonic things for those who live in internet deserts, kind of like myself. Depending on, what's going on with the weather, it can adversely impact. So they have a variety of ways. So don't give up. Continue to search and look for all the available tools that are out there. But the other piece is, it's always good, especially if our churches or our community providers are providing these free workshops, go, because you can build a self-care plan for you that can help you to kind of reduce the symptomology or the stress response until you're able to get into a provider for that next level of treatment.
That's good. I wanted to make sure that, we did give them some hope if they're running into that in your community or even in the community that I am in. And so, we never want them to feel like, well, there's a wait list, so there's no hope for me. So I wanted to make sure that we did that. So now I want to back up just a little bit. Why do you feel you went into this line of work, this calling, and opened up your practice?
It's interesting because when I first started on my professional journey out of high school, my goal was to be an attorney. And in fact, I did a legal student mock trial competition, and I was awarded a full scholarship, a full ride to Florida State University to go to law school. And I made some different choices and decisions, and I did not go to law school. And therefore, a period of time, I kind of wondered what I wanted to do. And I was working in child welfare. So I was an investigator with Department of Children and Family. And in that particular profession, I encountered so much family dysfunction, and a lot of it was connected to a lack of resources. And with DCF, of course, our main goal and objective was to ensure the child's safety, and that is extremely important. But preserving the family was not equally important. And so working in that particular profession birthed in me a desire to not just be the one to come out and take, but to be the one that gives, that gives the resources, that gives the unconditional positive regard, that gives the love and support that's needed to help heal the families. So at that point, I had already finished my first master's degree, which was in criminology and psychology. I decided to go back to school to get my second master's degree, which was in social work, because I felt like God was just calling me to be a healer. And that is kind of what birthed that journey, me wanting to be a solution to the problem, to the ills. I feel like sometimes we can go in and we can point fingers and we can remove, but I didn't want to remove. I wanted to give hope, give faith, give solutions, give strategies, give tools, give skills. I just wanted to give. And so from the moment that I stepped into this profession, that has been my focus and intention, is to give.
That is simply amazing. It's amazing that you recognize the things that you recognized when you said you would go into the homes. Now, I'm gonna push this just a little a step further. So that was spiritual discernment, because let me tell you what happened when you did that. You didn't just look at that as a job. You know, there are some people who work a job. You go to the job and you just work the job, and you work the job and you work the job. You went further than working the job, because things were, it wasn't settling in your spirit what was taking place. The job that they were asking you to do, you knew that God was calling you to do something greater and to do something better for others.
Yes.
That's simply amazing. There's a difference in working your job because you have to work the job, and loving your job, or being passionate about your job. And in that case, you were passionate, not about the job, but you were passionate about others. And that says a lot, because even with that, you had to go further. You had to get more education.
Yes.
Which means, you know, you could have settled right there.
Right.
And that shows a deeper passion for what you just said a few minutes ago. You wanted to give. That is simply amazing. Now, I want you to know that you and I have talked before.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that this part ever came up. And I want to publicly commend you for that. That is absolutely amazing that you had that much care and that much concern for the families that you were serving. That's amazing. And I want to applaud you. And I thank God for showing you that, because you are truly called to what you do as a therapist.
Yes.
Truly called to what you do as a therapist. And like I said, we talked before, but I had no idea about that part. So let me ask you this. So we talked earlier about products. Can you tell us some of the products that you provide, that you create for your clients to help them when they are not with you being serviced? What type of products do you recommend or provide for your clients?
So there's a wide variety and a mixture of things that I'll both provide and recommend. And typically, a lot of that is going to be driven by what we call the treatment plan or their self-care plan. And so, as we're identifying the needs and our targeted response to the need, that's when we kind of decide what products, what resources and materials that they're going to need. So I'll give you some examples of things that I may recommend.
Mm-hmm.
I may recommend essential oils at certain times of the day. And with those essential oils, I typically will provide their first sample. And then if we're seeing the results that we like and they're being used appropriately, then we will, I have a distributor that will order the organic essential oils from. I also make particular soaks that they will use that are herb focused. And so those herbs would be targeted to whether it's anxious or irritability versus deficits with sleep. And so I will create a blend, and it can be used as a shower steam or it can be used as a bath soak. Other things that I will create for my clientele or either recommend from a particular distributor if I don't make those on hands are certain herbal teas. Because, for example, lemon balm tea has the properties of a de-stressor. So it is an immediate anti-stressor. So if you had a nice warm cup of lemon balm tea in the morning, there is about a 60% reduction in anxious response over the remainder of that day. So there are particular teas also as well. And these are things that I learned as I obtained my certification in aromatherapy, because we all know that God blessed us with these beautiful senses, and there are different ways to cater to the senses within our environment that assist. We may even create eating plans, because there are certain foods that individuals are eating that have an adverse effect on, let's say, insulin levels. And so we may create targeted eating plans. There are books that I may recommend, to include my book, The Heart-Centered Journey, which also there are companion homework assignments that will come along with that particular book. So there I have workbooks that have different types of assessments. So it really depends on what the client needs. And there are some things that I may distribute, maybe like for mass market. But the majority of the tools that I use, because I love to be intentional, I try to reserve those resources for the clients that I'm working with so that they have optimal reduction of symptoms and optimal growth in those areas that they have identified that they desire to grow in. So it really is a personal approach. And because I don't do this to make money, I do it because my goal is healing. And so that's why I said, while I have a whole line of products, what I found was the time it takes to create those was time that I could have been spending with the clients. And so I just chose to kind of shift my approach a little bit. Now, if I have a client that reaches out to me or someone who reaches out to me and they let me know they're having a particular set of symptoms, what I like to do, and really what is important for me to do, is to do a full-scale assessment on that client so that I know that the interventions that I'm providing for them are evidence-based and that they're going to be effective. So that's how my wraparound approach works at the Heart-Centered Journey, which is why I think my practice has been so successful, because I try to treat everyone as an individual and work to address their unique needs.
I love that. I love that. That is amazing. Now, if you could speak to the person who may not believe that essential oils and herbs and those type things really work. Not that you can ever convince somebody of anything. What would you say to that person?
So I would probably make it experiential, and I would say to that person, what is a smell that you connect to, let's say, your favorite person? So, for example, my grandmother always wore Red Door perfume. And no matter where I was, if someone had on that perfume, I would recognize it and I would immediately have thoughts and these affective responses of my grandmother. Same thing with food. If you walk in and you smell some fried chicken, what it does is it stimulates not only this biological response, but this cognitive and emotional response as well. And so we realize that the senses are so important, and they're connected to more than just the act of smelling, but the senses communicate to our brain through the releasing of certain endorphins and certain hormones, and they can trigger euphoric responses. And here is the thing, even if we look biblically, we realize that there were certain spices that were used to communicate, whether it was anointing or whether it was purification or cleansing. And so essential oils have a track record of being used for healing and medicinal purposes, anointing. And if you can get them in an organic state, you will reap the benefits of essential oils. I think where the doubt kind of trickles in is most individuals will just kind of go to their little local store and they'll pick up a diffuser and they may buy these quote unquote essential oils, and they have a little bit of an effect, but not what they were really looking for. And so when you look at the chemical properties, when you look at the ingredients, you realize that there's more chemical and perfume and alcohol in these products, which is why you're not getting that stimulatory or that calming effect. And so that's why it's important that when you are using certain products, that you want to get them in as in an organic or original form as you can, and then you will see the effects, such as lavender and lemon balm. There's so many out there that research supports that they have this effect on the brain, whether it be stimulating or whether it be calming. There's a lot of research to support their effectiveness.
I had to push there just a little bit. I'm not a therapist by any no kind of way. But I live by essential oils. And I love the fact that you talked about the tea, drinking certain teas first thing in the morning. Let's push a little bit about what we call when we do that is we are channeling the direction of our day. And another word Dr. Shalita used was being intentional. So when you want your day to go in a certain direction, you have to be intentional about what you put in your body and about the essential oils that you use. But there are still people, and I asked you to do that as a therapist, because there's still people that really don't believe that essential oils can do anything for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I wanted to push that just a little bit further, because that's the reason that I got into in COVID, because before COVID, I could care less about, I had essential oils and different things. But when COVID hit, I found myself more stressed. And so that's what I did. I began to do research for things that could help me. And as I began to do research and I began to utilize the things and make things for myself, first it started out with me making things for myself and then me making things for my family. And then it branched off to me making things for others. That the organic and natural products, they really do have benefits. And notice Dr. Shalita mentioned about the alcohol and the stuff that's added to it. It's very important to check the chemicals that and this should be chemicals in anything that you put on your body or that your body intakes. We should be concerned about what's in it.
Correct.
This is what makes a difference in our lives. Some of us have health concerns and health issues that we really have to pay attention to. And what COVID really helped me see, that it is good to get back to things being at its most natural state as possible. Someone is making the comment, peppermint tea. Yes, peppermint tea and mango oils. Yes, Marilyn, absolutely correct. Because these different things, and that's why I wanted Dr. Shalita, who is licensed, and she also mentioned that she is a certified aromatherapist, meaning she knows how to make certain blends for it to do what her clients needs. Because the truth of the matter is, not everyone has the same needs. And just because lavender works for me, it does not mean that lavender is going to work for you. That's why Dr. Shalita was saying that she has to do the assessment. What did you call the assessment, Dr. Shalita?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's typically what we call a biopsychosocial spiritual assessment, mm-hmm. so that we can holistically assess the entire person, mm-hmm. because remember, we're connected biologically, psychologically, socially, and spiritually. And when we miss one of those domains, it can adversely impact the treatment modality, mm-hmm. that we will develop moving forward. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So Dr. Shalita, tell the audience why you feel as a therapist that self-care is so very important.
So I want to take a moment and just kind of shape our definition of self-care.
Mm-hmm.
We hear this term used so often, but individuals define it differently. So I want to make sure everybody understands that self-care is not synonymous with self-indulgence or being selfish. Mm-hmm. That is not what self-care is. Self-care states that I am being intentional about taking care of my temple so that I can be holistically healthy, so that I can be well in every environment that I'm in, whether it's at home, whether it's at school, whether it's at work, whether it's when I'm interacting with others. And so self-care requires intention, and it is this self-focused intention, but really it is selfless. Now, we hear a lot about serving, right? We need to be a servant at heart. Many of us are not serving. We're going through the motions, but we're not serving. You cannot serve if your holistic being is not well. I cannot pour into your cup if I'm empty. And so we have to make sure that we understand what self-care is. And once we really understand what self-care is and we can connect it to our being, meaning that I'm a temple. You know, God created me on purpose. There are certain things that are to be a part of who I am. And there are parts that should not. There are parts that can manifest as self-harm. So when we practice what I love to call the art of contemplation, and it really is about hearing God and hearing ourselves. And when we can really hear the inner being, we can hear God, we can hear ourselves, then we're positioned to hear others. I can't hear anything you're saying if my life is in turmoil or my thoughts are all over the place. I can sit right in front of you and I can be physically present, but mentally and emotionally distant. And so we have to start with this place of contemplation, hearing God and hearing self, then we can hear others. But when we hear God and hear self, we will avoid what I term self-harm. And self-harm is subtle. Self-harm is sneaky. Here is how you'll know you're moving into that realm of self-harm. You're ignoring the fact that your energy is depleted. You are functioning in a space where you do not have the capacity. You're exhausted. You are committing before you consult with God and connect with yourself, which means that every opportunity, everything that's going around, it might look good, but it does not mean that it's from God, and it does not mean that it's for you. So we have to consult with God and connect with ourselves. And we have to ask ourselves some questions. We got to connect with our body and say, what are you thinking? And what are you really feeling? Do I really want to do this? Sometimes we harm ourselves by saying yes to something that we should have said no to. Sometimes we harm ourselves when we force ourselves to be and do something, even if it's for someone else, when we really know in our heart that we don't want to be there and we don't want to do it. We're just doing it simply to do it. That is self-harm. That is forcing yourself to do something that it does not want to do. What profit is there in that?
My.
Because the person who's there can pick up in your nonverbal that you don't want to be there. And you know deep within that you don't want to be there as well. So we have to make sure that before we commit, we consult with God, we connect with ourselves. Look at your calendar. What else am I doing this week? Does me saying yes to this adversely impact my routine? Is it that time of the month ladies, because we all know that that has an effect on our energy reserve, our motivation, and our attitude, right? Am I able to practice self-care around this commitment? And can I show up authentically? And so when we are really practicing self-care and we're considering ourselves in the context of our commitments and our environment, what happens is we show up whole, we show up healthy, we show up mindfully present, we show up intentionally, and we show up authentically. And when we can show up that way, we can give the best of who we are to everyone around us instead of trying to give people pieces of us. And sometimes the pieces that we give are not healthy and whole pieces.
That was good, Dr. Shalita. Oh, wow, that was good. If you have any questions for Dr. Shalita, please type them in the chat. Dr. Shalita, can you tell me the title of your book again?
Yes, the title of my book is The Heart-Centered Journey. It's the same as my website. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and where can it be purchased?
It can be purchased off of my website, which is www.theheartcenteredjourney.com. You can also order it off of Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Okay, give it to me one more time. The Heart-Centered
Journey, CCCINC.com.
Amazon and Barnes and Nobles?
Yes.
Okay. If you have any questions, type them. If you're on YouTube, you can text me. While I still have Dr. Shalita on, I'm going to go through the comments really quickly. I hope that this was eye-opening, a blessing to someone on today as we talked about the therapy that Dr. Shalita does, and also self-care. Dr. Shalita, I'm going to ask you a question. What do you do for self-care?
I have a routine, and I commit to this routine, and everything that's in my routine is specific to deficits or areas that I desire to grow. So typically when I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is stretch. I stretch before I put my feet on the floor, and then I pray. The stretching allows me to wake up and to be alert as I enter into prayer with God. I don't want to be sluggish and half asleep. So I stretch, I go into pray, and then I drink 16 ounces of water. After I drink my water, I typically will then go and kind of do some hygiene related things. But I'm going to be honest with you, I normally do not start my day until 10 a.m. I give myself from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. to practice my morning routine.
Oh, wow.
And in my morning routine, I have journaling. I have a podcast that I like to listen to. I read both my Bible and do my morning devotional, and I read a book for 30 minutes. And then I sit down in front of my planner and I intentionally plan my day while in a state of contemplation. You know, I like for God to be able to communicate with me the things that I need to do for that day. And one side, a part of the journaling or the planning for my day that I do includes a gratitude statement, an affirmation statement, and a daily intention. And what that does is most people will be like, I don't have time to do all of that. And that's fine. I have not always been at the place where I could appreciate and enjoy 3 hours in the morning, but you may be able to do 15, 20 minutes in the morning, or 15 or 20 minutes in the evening. Whatever you can do, you're worth it. And if you're intentional about it, what I did was I moved some things off my calendar. I rarely will answer telephone calls before 10 o'clock. I rarely entertain text messages before 10 a.m. because that's my time to plan for the day. So those are some of the things that I do. I love my herbal teas. I love coffee. So I make myself a custom espresso every single morning. And I sit and I sip it. I love background music. But if you give me a moment, I want to leave this one thing because I think it has made the difference for me, Pastor Sendar.
Yes.
It's called monotasking. We live in a society that tells us we got to produce, and perform. And so we try to do 1, 2, 3, 7 things at one time. And when you try to focus on more than one thing at a time, you are not accomplishing much more than you would. Well, let me rephrase that. You're not accomplishing what you conceptualize or think you're accomplishing. In fact, when you multitask, what happens is you decrease your productivity by 40%. And the reason you decrease your productivity by 40% is because when you multitask, you lower your IQ because you're trying to get pieces and you're trying to use different areas of the brain instead of sitting in that moment and allowing that convolute cortex region of the brain, instead of allowing it to really focus and regulate your emotions and even your empathy and your presence, you're trying to shift sequentially between sections of the brain and you actually are self-harming.
Wow.
So one of the things that I purposed to do a little over a year ago is I do what's called a Pomodoro. If I have something that's significant, and that is 25 minutes of focused time on one task. I'm fully present, wholly for whatever I'm doing. And so if that is my coffee, I am savoring every minute of it. The taste, the texture, the warmth, the way it looks aesthetically. We have to slow down. Slow down.
That's good. Yes. Oh, that's good. Now, I have my coffee, but I must admit, I don't take the time to enjoy it like I should. I'm going to change that. I never even thought about that with my coffee. And if you know me well, those of you who are very close to me, you know that a lot that Dr. Shalita talked about is a lot that I do. And what she talked about without using the word, when she talked about not answering the phone, when she talked about not responding to text messages, she has what in place? Healthy boundaries.
Yes.
And she doesn't allow anything to get in the way of her boundaries. Absolutely, positively. Listen, Dr. Shalita, I want to thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited that we kept going in spite of our technical difficulties. The Lord spoke to me and said, you always have the phone. As long as they can hear her voice, they will be able to get the knowledge from her. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule today to share with me here on the Her Peace Talk Show. Now, if you enjoyed this, I know it was in the middle of the day. I have to go with what's available for my guest. Many of you, you came on, you didn't stay the entire time, but if you would let Dr. Shalita know that you enjoyed this conversation, that you would make some comments. If you watched the replay, she gave some very, very, very good nuggets. I would say to go back and listen to it fully when you are able to. And I want to say thank you to those of you who dropped in. I know many of you are at work, but you can go back and watch it. It's going to stay on my page, my Facebook page. It's going to stay on my YouTube page. Go and get these free nuggets that Dr. Shalita shared on today. Again, Dr. Mira, I want to thank you for joining me on the Her Peace Talk Show. Thank you for sharing the knowledge that you have, and thank you for dropping these amazing nuggets on today. I want to say that I have more guests who will be joining me on the Her Peace Talk Show. Taylor Made will be joining me. And this is with Kim Hill. She will be joining me to talk about what she offers for women. No More Tears, which is by my daughter, Dr. Kenya Williams, will be joining me, and I will always post the image and the time that the person will be joining me. Also, Images of Hope will be joining me. She will be sharing what she offers for women, as well as the Locks Bar of Orlando. She will be joining me to talk about her business and what she does. She's also the owner of Naki, which is products that she makes by hand, and also Woo, Women of Orlando. And the owner of that is Monique Nichols. These ladies will be joining me to continue to talk about what they offer for women and about self-care. I hope that you have enjoyed what was shared on today and also this month, and that you will continue to join me in the days ahead. Again, thank you for joining today for the Her Peace Talk Show. Take care.